Thank you. Thank you so much for joining today. This is the part Inspirit. Inspirit is using self-expression as a means to come deeply in contact with yourself. I really like that definition of it. It's like in order to self-express, you have to connect with yourself, otherwise nothing is happening. Now this we do playful with assignments, exercises, sketches, whatever comes to you to use for self-expression. And it's nice to, in fact, be taken by the flow of inspiration. This week I discovered that myself too with making a painting. I didn't paint for some time, and then suddenly I start painting, and I see that I easily lose many hours in just doing that. Now, I lose myself in that time, and still something is coming up and it's presenting itself as an expression of something that I dedicated myself to play that, to do that, to make that. And that's a lovely thing to do. Now you can also, and some of us recognize that too, it's like you can also try to do something and not come up with anything, and see that you also spend 2 hours but then are frustrated that there's no result. That's another way of self-expression, but it's also self-expression, so there's no loss in that. Time is over anyway. So today, time is part of the assignment. That's for one thing. We looked this week a lot in the meetings, a lot at the idea of the tiny tick of time. In fact, the moment of recognition of separation, that immediately was corrected. And now we still see that this idea echoes back into our expression of ourselves, into our experience of ourselves, thinking that, still sometimes think that you are separate. And that was already corrected a long time ago. So the healing capacity of this idea is literally limitless, recognizing that the separation didn't take place, and that there can be no sacrifice to hand over, to let go of what isn't, in order to come deeply, not only in touch with yourself, but to actually discover who you truly are. There can be no loss in that. What could possibly lose itself in that, except the idea of loss itself? And that was the message of the last couple of meetings. I just recall that. That's amazing. I get a lot of help, obviously, otherwise I wouldn't be able to do that, because I really don't organize my thoughts. And sometimes I try to do that, but then, so it has to be given, then it works perfectly. If I try to do it, it's not going to work. So, and this is with the constant flow of inspiration too. If you try to make something or try to do something, what happens? It stops, because you don't have to try to do it. You are the inspirational flow, like this happens. So let it express, let it make use of you in every aspect of your you-ness, using your hands, using your ears, your eyes, your voice, and all these things that we start to use in this meeting that we have. Now today we start with becoming still, and this is a very specific section. It has to do with forgiveness in a sense, but basically it's like in the action of releasing, of letting go, forgiveness is taken care of. So in your action of forgetting the past, in other words, not picking it up and bringing it back into this moment, you actually forgive it. So there's a forgetting connected to it. You're not picking your past up to bring it back here, because you would miss the joy of the birth of this moment. Now this we contemplate in the meditation that I'm going to start. So yeah, sit back and relax. Forgive the past and let it go, for it is gone. You stand no longer on the ground that lies between the worlds. You have gone on and reached the world that lies at heaven's gate. There is no hindrance to the will of God, nor any need that you repeat again a journey that was over long ago. Look gently on your brother and behold the world in which perception of your hate has been transformed into a world of love.
Pardonnez le passé et laissez-le partir, car il a disparu. Vous ne vous tenez plus au sol qui se situe entre les mondes. Tu as continué et as atteint le monde qui se trouve à la porte du ciel.
But this came to me, what I'm going to show now. It's from Anish Kapoor, and it speaks for itself. I'm not going to say anything about it, but I love to dive into the atmosphere and to, well, maybe I should say something about it. No matter what the artwork is, this is a great thing. It's like, no matter what the artwork appears to be, it is not really about the artwork, because the artwork is like just a symbol. It is whether it's a painting, whether it's a sculpture, whether it's an installation, whether it's photography, it is still a symbol of what the discovery of the artist was in fact, say, presented by a timestamp. You could call a picture, you could call a painting, you could call architecture. Like it is a snapshot of an idea that came to life as a discovery in the mind of the artist. Now that's a great way to look at it, because it is just a timestamp. And that means also the artist doesn't need to be there in order for it to present it. So the installation can do its work. And when you would technically look at it, or start to analyze it, you would say like, well, that what we're going to see, for instance, so that looks like a huge vacuum cleaner, vacuum cleaning up dust. And okay. And it's like, well, that was not the discovery of the artist when this idea came to him. So there's something behind all of this, which makes it, we call it an art. Then suddenly it's art, because it represents something that you might not recognize right away, because it is a symbol. Now, to learn the language of this symbol of the artist, you have to get into it a little bit. You can... for one thing, you shouldn't compare it with anything else. For one thing, you shouldn't look for the familiar in it. No, you're going to be completely open to actually expose yourself to what is occurring. And that means there are discoveries to be made. And if you're lucky, you discover something that you didn't notice before. I had it the other day. I used this example before, but it's a great one. It's like going to the Van Gogh Museum, standing in front of the irises. I had like beautiful painting, and then suddenly I had, wait a minute, there's a discovery to be made here. And what I discovered was that something took place here, and it felt like there was a time lapse, like a time collapse, as if the paint was still wet and I could smell the turpentine right in front of me, like as if Van Gogh just had walked out of the door. It was so much alive, it was so freshly created that I had no idea about it. Now, that was the experience that I had watching the irises. It didn't matter to me how the irises were painted. No, it was the experience that the paint was wet, and Van Gogh must have walked just out. The same here. So you walk into, you see some people actually entering into the experience of it. You see that everyone's responding differently to it, and of course, because you have a different level of perceiving this. If you only look to the form, you miss it. If you allow yourself to transcend the form in your perception or in your openness to it, you might discover something completely different. See, this is what I love. That's great. You see that the artist himself didn't really work alone. He had some help to accomplish this, of course. I mean, so don't forget this. If you even attempt to compare what you're doing, you do this by yourself, whatever you're making. You do this by yourself. You don't have a team of, say, 120 guys helping you out to accomplish something. No, you do this by yourself. But the basic thing is the same. You see here, the artist is not there. The mechanics of it, that's a matter of a lot of probably calculations in order to make it, to do the engineering part of it. Then let it work. And all that has nothing to do with what the artist represents or what he's actually trying to convey. And this is the beautiful part. So it's like, try not to look at how he did it. Try not to look at the form directly that's the last part, in fact. That is just the means to come to the expression of what it wants to convey to you. But the tendency with perception is, of course, to start analyzing it, making an engineering schedule of like, oh, that must be looking like this, or sketch, like, oh, you must have done it like that. Also interesting. So that's, of course, it's interesting to take a look at that. But it's not what the artist means. Now, what the artist means, you can only experience if you let go of all these things. Then suddenly you see that there's a direction, there's a focus, there's an energy flowing, there's a movement, and on and on. Like, there's a lot to discover. Now this will bring you closer to what it actually is that the artist wants to convey. When you call it Ascension, it was just dust and a vacuum cleaner, you could say. Like, I can call my vacuum cleaner also an ascender, like it sucks up stuff, but that's not what it means here. So it can literally help you to visualize or to come into an idea of being lifted up, of ascending, of leaving behind, of letting go, of forgiving. And all the practice that we do. So that's why I thought it was a great example, because the engineering part is quite impressive, but still it has nothing to do with the content of what is actually being expressed. Now, keep this in mind when we take a look at each other's work, so to speak, because it is not about the form, it's not about the colors that you use, it's not about any of these things. It's not about the form, really. You use the form, but it's not about the form. So what content does it have? What is actually trying to say? What discovery do you make watching it? Where does it bring you into? And that makes every piece of work, so to speak, in a certain sense a puzzle, but also an intriguing exploration. So that's really great. So you walk into a museum, it will be different this time, because you're not concerned about how did he paint it, or what brushes did he use, and what's that kind of paint. Like, no, forget about that. You're not going to make this. This is already made, and it tries to tell you something. Now listen to it. Yeah, so that's really lovely.